data.
I know, I know. You called me a specimen.
Yes, you're a specimen. You're not a patient. You're definitely a specimen.
No,
Uh,
I feel very confident in your analysis and Roman's analysis.
well, thank you. Thank you.
You
It's like,
even you know get a number, Chris, if you want. You know specimen number one.
Yeah, oh, that's good.
yeah, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, you're a
But
specimen
this
number one. It's
but
it's
this butterfly's not going to be caged.
like no, definitely not. I mean, definitely not. Hello, hi Zipporah. Andrea, you made it. Yay. All right. Melissa. Woo, brand new. Good. Just getting warmed up here, you guys.
I'm calling in from New York today.
Oh, hey, cool, Zipporah. Cool. I spoke with some colleagues of yours yesterday, Karen and Noelle of
Manifestables, I told her it's in alignment for this next one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, Zipporah. Thank you for telling them, because they know me. I've presented before years ago.
That's how I found you, Susan.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, when you spoke. So yeah. So I mean, if you were talking about doing it at Joe Dispenza's conferences, I mean, this is a definitely a smaller, intimate
Mhm.
conference festival where a lot of people would
Yeah,
resonate with what you're working
absolutely.
on.
Sure, absolutely. Now, how is everyone on the Garmin watch or Apple Watch? Anyone with Apple Watch?
I have Apple Watch, but I ordered a Garmin and it should be
Oh,
here in a few days.
that's right. That's right. Okay, got it. Good. Okay, excellent. Um, yeah, the most common message I get from Apple users is, I can't see my data on my mobile phone. I'm like, yeah, it's because it's not there. Um, for a lot of reasons, we can't connect the Apple Watch to the mobile phone, because partly because of the battery drainage, and it takes some time to port it. And also with Apple Watch, we have a much lower sampling rate. And so it's kind of hard to show a picture of a graph over time when the time might just be 5 minutes, you know? So there's not as much to show. So I'm glad, Andrea, you're getting a Garmin. Barbara, are you using Apple Watch or Garmin Watch? Garmin. Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay, cool. She's got it on. Look at that. All right. So for those of you who have Garmin and have the watch, and do you have it installed? Do you have data flowing through the Soul Compass app yet? All right. Super. Birgit made it. Wow, look at look at her. She just took a bite of her popsicle. She's been traveling with her daughter and they both joined recently. Nice to see you.
Yeah, just having some ice cream.
That's great. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, way to flow. Just like what she's doing. Just go get yourself a popsicle and um way to flow. I love it. So cute. Okay, so I'm just gonna go through a few slides, and in the near future, this will all be done through an autopilot video. We won't be doing this part live anymore. These calls will become more and more just richer with content and training and benefit for more users as you begin to take off. So, but for now, I'm just going to go through a few slides, and so I'm going to create a troubleshooting page for brand new startup members so you can just walk yourself through all of the hints and tips to make sure it's working and how to make it work better and faster. And the most important feature is figuring out how to set up the sync button on your Garmin watch so that you can manually say, send my data out of my watch and into the app and up to the flow validator where we analyze it and then send it back your results. If you don't do that, sometimes hours go by. Garmin won't proactively send data down frequently because it drains the battery and they're trying to save the battery. So we have to be a little more involved and tell it to drop the data, unload it, and get it analyzed. So let me share my screen. You want to see data flowing through, right? You want to see this green line, a pink line, and a purple line just overlapping in the middle. That's usually takes about 10 to 15 minutes when you first start wearing the watch before data starts flowing through. So this is what you want to see, is something coming through like that. And if you touch the screen of your mobile phone over the graphs, a vertical line will show up and give you a date and timestamp of what time and what day that was. And then you see this little plus sign. If you click on the plus sign, you'll get a little journal entry. And this is currently just for you. We're not using it yet, but we will eventually. But it's for you to write down something about what was happening at that time. If you press the summary button, you might see an interesting screen. It's not technically supported yet, so we're not going to go into it today. But this is eventually going to be how you can see your trends, daily, weekly, monthly, and all time. And so we're not going over it because it's not quite ready. If for any reason you don't see data, and this can happen even if you get it working and then one day it's like, hey, where's my waves? You want to, first thing you do is go into settings on your phone and just make sure that your watch is paired via Bluetooth. So go into settings, Bluetooth, and look to see that whichever watch you have, it says connected. And if not, try to connect it. Sometimes that still doesn't work. Another thing to look at is over here on the right, you want to make sure that you see your heart rate information. If it looks like this, which is just flat, nothing, that usually means it's no longer paired. So this is just a tip on how to repair your watch to your mobile phone. But this is the most important. So I'm gonna play this video. It's 1 minute long. And I realize it might be different on different Garmin watches. So this is just for Garmin Venue 2. It's similar to others. So let's just play it. Press that lower button on the right. Scroll up until you see the settings and see the word controls. Press controls. And now here's my control panel, but it's full. And so if it goes away, just press that button again. I need to delete something to make room. So I'm going to delete the stopwatch because I never use that. See the trash can, press that. Now there's a plus sign. I can hit plus and choose sync. And in its place, I got the sync button. Then you need to zoom out by pressing that button a few times. Come back to here. Press the top button on the right to get your control panel to show up. And look, now I've got sync. And if I just press that, it'll synchronize. And in the future, that's all I got to do is press this top button and hold it. Control panel comes up and tap the sync button. It sends the data to our flow validator and analyzes it and sends you the results on the Soul Compass. That's it. To Garmin Connect, turn that on. And up at the top right is the sync button. Just to the left of it is a picture of your Garmin watch. Click on that to go to your device. Scroll down to General. Then at the very top it says Wi-Fi networks. Click on that. And then make sure it's connected to your network. And that way when you synchronize the Garmin watch, it will push the data out. The next thing we want you to look for is our biometric black paper. And there will also be, I'll be sending you a link to this as well. This is the link on our hard drive, our Google Drive. So rather than go through it today, the best way to discuss it is to give you examples. So that's what I'm going to do next. Here are some basic interpretations, just real basic interpretations The green line right here, this green line is referred to allowance. And allowance is very, very close to heart rate variability. It's actually an averaging of your short-term and long-term heart rate variations. And that's the closest indicator of your heart coherency. The more your heart rate is varying in time, the higher your harmonics are that your heart is beating to. The pink line, this pink line here, we call balance. And at the moment, it's a rather simple formula that compares the ratio of your component heart frequencies. So this will evolve, and I'll talk about that more in a bit. And coherency, the purple line, is also a ratio of one of your heart frequencies against the total frequency. This will also be evolving over time. But what you're really looking for, the best indication, like, is when your allowance is rising. Really, this is probably the most important metric right now. Like, see how it's low right now, and that's okay. That's not necessarily bad. It's all about, can you get it to rise? That is a very good sign of your higher allowance, higher coherence, letting go, not trying so hard. And many of you may have noticed that when you're physically active, like the more physical you are, it's going to go down because your heart is pumping faster to keep up with whatever your physical activity is. And it beats faster and faster, and therefore has less and less variation within the beats. So one of the hardest things is for athletes to bring this up. But of course, over time they can, because they're very conditioned and their resting heart rate is lower, and it doesn't take as much to do what they're doing when they've been doing it for years and years and perfecting it. So just be aware, don't be surprised if this comes down. It's not intended to be up all the time. We are a bundle of waves forms, right? If it was always static, you'd be dead. So you want this thing to vary. And again, see how this is a really great example of getting into a flow state where you're rising in your allowance and your balance is holding, and so is your coherency. These, especially like over here, you see how when they're all high, that's a very, very strong indication of flow, whereas this is a readiness or a rising to the state of flow. Now, what we have discovered over the last few months is there are some occasions when our current formulas might actually miss your flow. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit with with those who join us and are ready to discuss some of our future plans. Here are some other examples. Here's probably Chris Coyne. He flows a lot. He's a deep meditator and a very fit man in his 70s, but looks like he's 45. He can hold these metrics not only up here, but we've seen him hold them at 100%. And no one's being compared to anybody else. You know, we're really, it's about self-empowerment and just improving yourself. So we just love it when we have some really great specimens so that we can improve our formulas, because we're looking for the universal formulas that are the truth for everyone and not just fit a certain group of people. Here's another really beautiful example on the right of, do you see how everything just sort of comes together and there's a peak where everything peaks together? This is, sometimes that's how it goes, you know. I'm more like this, where I'll just reach a very high point and I can feel it, and then I might come back down again. Whereas others who've been meditating a long time, for many years, they can hold it higher for longer. Um, here's an example of something that occurred for me on September 2nd. I was doing a super focused heart intention, like really focusing on expanding my heart and just removing resistance and just relaxing. And my allowance really went up and held longer, and then it came back down again. I'm not worried about my balance dipping. Mine often do go in opposite directions. For others, they go together. So again, don't let that mean anything right now. We don't actually know what the difference is. But when I look over at Garmin at exactly that same time, under body battery, it interestingly showed this bump, like this, big, like a wave rose in my blue lines of rest, and my so-called whatever body battery is, was improved. I was restoring at this time. So this was a moment of restoring my body, my mind, my heart, my soul. And this is how you can use Garmin with the soul compass, is if you see something happening on the soul compass that looks special or different, go look at Garmin and see what it says about your stress or your body battery or even your heart rate. Garmin focuses on stress, we focus on love or anti-stress. Any questions, especially from some of the new people? Dr. Bernie, oh my God, please. Oh my God. Nobody has questions? Okay. Well, then.
Susan, I do. Robin.
Hi, Robin.
Hi.
Good to see you.
So I have been noticing a really strange, first of all, I've been over the last year doing a lot of deep grief work, a lot of grief work. And I have been very surprised that in a lot of the meditations when I'm meditating and the heart is feeling how and there's like movement, and then I go back and look at the data expecting it to be in the mid or high ranges. It's like been as low as like 2. Is it wrong? And these are moments of like awakenings, like goosebump moments, like you call. And I've thought, oh, I just want to see what it said in a goosebump moment. And so, I
really
just
good.
want
Really,
that for me, because it's healing, I know. So maybe when the heart is healing, sometimes it isn't, like the coherences or the balances will be really solid, but they'll just be these enormous, in what feels altered. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. So I love your question. Thank you. This is really, I think, at the heart of what we're trying to figure out, right? Like, how is it, or why is it that when I actually feel lighter and more accepting and I'm releasing resistance, that it could look low? And I'm going to go into a couple examples of that. We recently actually discovered, by looking at the raw data, that sometimes our formulas, in the attempt to smooth out the peaks or the strong changes, we're sort of doing an averaging that, like, I too experienced where I expected it to be, at the top, but it was only at half. I was like, why is that? So that's just the first thing I want to say, that you're not crazy. You might truly be experiencing something that we're not yet able to, that you're not able to see, but in a couple weeks from now, we're prepared to open the hood, so to speak, and let you peek inside at closer to raw data to maybe hunt for these little golden nuggets of truth. It's the opposite of when you think there's something wrong with you and the doctor says there's nothing wrong, but you intuitively know there's something wrong. Well, we're the opposite of that. Like if you intuitively know something's right, but you're not seeing it, well then, we want to talk about it. We want to hunt for the truth with you and see if we can uncover that gem of wisdom and connection. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say, and it's a little delicate, is wherever your thoughts go, your energy will flow. It's incredibly hard to focus on grief, which is like way down at the bottom of the barrel, and get relief. Now, it can be done, and we'd love it if you could show us how to do that. But I consider it one of the more challenging things to do, to find the blessings in disguise. And that's why I shared with you my heart experience, because it actually physically did hurt, because my heart was, it was like I had sprinted and in the opposite direction. It's hard to explain. Like it wasn't beating fast. It was slowing way down, and almost like the saying, my heart skipped a beat. And we have noticed that if you can slow your heart rate down, your variability does go up, right? They're inverse. So slow the heartbeats down and physically create space in the heart, and space and time between the beats causes the variation in those beats to rise. And it's rising to a higher resonant frequency is what's happening. The overall, beats, if you could see them, they're basically beating to a higher resonance that we can't even see. So just to circle around that point one last time, when people tell me they're working on trauma work or grief work, I'm like, we want to create tools for people to actually, instead of going down or staying stuck or focused on anything that feels like grief or any negative emotions whatsoever, all negative emotions are a reflection of your beliefs, and focus on something that's really not resonating with your true self, with true.
Well, and that's where I've been so appreciative of the data, because I feel like the heart is not going to lie.
Right.
And so even if I'm walking or laying down or sitting, because I've looked at all three physicalities, and I'm thinking these beautiful thoughts. And in some of the meditations, I was even feeling like I was feeling some bliss, some elevation in the mind.
Right,
like the mind is there,
right?
But then the allowance is so low.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this is just telling me I'm still really sad underneath the thought of where I'm headed or where I'm trying to go or where I want to be, which was just very ironic. And it was actually,
I know,
on some level, soothing. And do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but
of course I do.
It won't lie. And so it's it's actually inviting me into some deeper work, because my mind thought I was here. But when I look at the data, I'm like, and as you said, I've been having to really hang tight, not to judge it, not to see it as negative, just to see it as a tool, to see it as something to. But I have questions. Is it not on right? Is it, my brain's like, is it not tight enough? Should it be upside down? Or, I'm like, do I need to return it? All those funny things.
All right. So, you're doing great, Robin. Really, the most compassion you can give yourself. You're not wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. Our formula for allowance is an average of your short-term and long-term heart rate variability. So it's a moving average. It won't necessarily show those instantaneous rises in your heart variability. We're going to share something with you that I think is going to make your heart sing today, about getting to look at a deeper look at the raw data. And that's actually where I discovered that our smoothing out the formulas might actually be hiding some of these more important truths. Okay, so there's relief coming. It's still a great tool. The formulas are excellent at showing your average. So you might miss those moments of bliss, but over time you're seeing an average. Okay, think of it like that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Okay, I'm just gonna take a moment here to acknowledge someone special. I mean, you're all special, but I'm gonna do this because it enhances my heart coherence. When I see Dr. Bernie, Dr. Bernie was my mother's doctor. And talk about a journey of releasing resistance and figuring out how to literally let go of your own mother physically. She's leaving her body. And Dr. Bernie helped me to do that in a way that wasn't trying to stay attached and keep her in her body, but really let her go. And then Mom could let go, right? Mom was scared too. And so together, we didn't focus on grief. We didn't focus on loss. We focused on the truth, which is she's eternal and she's just getting ready to leave her body, and we all go. And so if we could just bring more love and acceptance into that process, we all win. And so I'm just taking a moment to feel profound appreciation for you, Dr. Bernie. And we have been through so much even since then. It's wild. It's really wild. We've been learning about love with our parents in ways that have caused us to expand as beings. And so I'm doing this right now just to radiate and uplift myself so that I can be a better host for today's call. So thank you for you. All right, you guys. Yeah. Woo. Okay, before I forget, I'd like to make an announcement today, and you'll get an email invite tomorrow. Diana Jostrom, she's here on the call. Wave, she's got Breathe behind her. She is from LA and first heard about us at Unicorn Hunters. And she's going to do a breath, I call it a breath flow course tomorrow, just for this group. And you can measure yourself as you're participating. And these are going to become flow tube content so that people can participate live or as a replay, just to see if that technique or that method that person's discovered works. Does it work for you too? And of course, this is what we're all trying to figure out, is how to rise to our happier, truer, flowy selves. So Diana, do you want to just take a minute and tell us about what that's going to be like tomorrow?
Thank you for introducing me. So I'm actually from Germany. So yeah, but I live in LA for 8 years now. So I'm an actress, I'm a singer, and I'm a body worker. And especially the breathing, or what is usually called breath work, is very intense, and it can be very intense and can be very powerful, and the great thing is it's available. So all the time, you don't actually need anything else than your body and air to breathe. So, and when you work with it, you really can do wonders. You can heal, you can really change. Yeah. And I do the breath work. And yes, I want to get used to call it breath flow, because it's much nicer. So I think I'm so lucky that my work as an actress and singer is something that really it doesn't feel like effort. So I love to do the work. So that's why it's not really negative for me, but yeah, the
Right.
breath flow is very nice. I would do just a smaller part of breathing, and I just give you some guidance, and then would go over into a more relaxing part of with Ho'oponopono. And I
Wonderful.
invite you to join. And
Thank you, Diana. Yeah, every one of you probably has something that you figured out that works for you, whether it's breath work or a meditation or music. Like I did a sound bath the other day with Akasha and Kira. They came here to hang out with me, and that was really beautiful. And we recorded it. I shared it with all of you. Like those are the things we're wanting to spark, is what makes your heart expand and sing in these higher resonant tones. And when you do, you tend to be happier. You tend to get intuition, insights, ideas. You're restoring your body. I mean, Chris, do you mind if I point you out again? Here's our 70-year-old athlete who looks like he's still in his 40s. Yeah, so it's restorative, guys, right? Your body self-heals, your body anti-ages, life becomes easier, usually more abundance flows, more opportunities flow your way. Um, things feel more playful and fun and light, and you have greater influence to uplift others too, with your clarity, with your wisdom, and your energy. So that's what we're looking for. Okay, so because of our experiences with many of you, we have, and really I got to give credit here strongly for Roman, who rocked the boat in a beautiful way and said, come on, I want to see my data. What I'm seeing is your interpretation. And he's right. We were trying to interpret the data as best as we could. And then Roman, being such a brilliant engineer, and also Amkar's here. Yeah, these guys were like, we like data. Let us see it. Like, okay. So Mohan opened it up, and we started looking under the hood, so to speak, to see the data in more raw form and without interpretation. Now it's a little messy at first, but you really can see some of the nuggets of truth. They stand out more. So we have decided to gamify the discovery of these truths with all of you. We've decided to gamify the discovery to include all of you, to give you access. Now it's going to take us a few weeks because it does take some time to get this working. It'll be a web interface. You can look at it on your computer or your cell phone, but it won't be our specific mobile app. It'll be a separate flavor. And we'll have separate coaching for it to try to understand what do these acronyms mean, and how might you go about your own treasure hunt. And you can go hunt by yourself, or we're even thinking of ways to create like self-organized teams. Some of you are already coaches, leaders, teachers. You have a group of people that might even be your customers. Well, then self-organize as a group and go hunt for the treasure together, right? The more of you that are in a higher coherent state mentally and in your heart, the more likely you'll kind of have a sense for what to look for. And when you can share that with each other, it can accelerate the discoveries. So that's where we're going to begin these grants. We want to grant individuals or groups, but each grant will always be for a specific person. It might be each person in a group. When you discover something that is one of those aha moments, I'm going to show you an aha moment in just a moment here. Like these things aren't going to be hard to find. Our plan as a company is to then begin granting you stock options to co-own our company. And then you unlock those shares, you vest them, you exercise them by your ability to apply yourself to achieve what you discovered. So like if you discover that Diana's breath work is like that which unlocks Diana and brings her to a higher state, well, then that will be her measuring stick. She can then use her own techniques, and if they work, great. And if, you know, she's just naturally inspired to keep improving. And that's how you then unlock your shares in the company. And then even when it comes time to vote your shares, you also need to have elevated metrics to validate that you're in a higher state of clarity and abundance and love instead of lack or fear, right? So we're qualifying the votes, and we're qualifying how you can unlock them. And then for investors, we have a few investors even in this call. They can sell their shares to only you, to those of you who flow your best. So you become the only buyers. And this is how we're gamifying your self-empowerment and your improved value with our value. So we rise together. And so it's like, instead of the lowest common denominator, it's the highest unique, you know, numerator. You know, you know, we don't want anyone to hold anyone back. We want everyone to go to be an outer liar. The sky's the limit, and invite you in on that. Okay, Cal, you like that? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, also feel free, you guys, you can either just raise your hand if you want something to say, or just unmute yourself, or write in the chat group. We will respond as we can. So you guys like the sound of all that? Yay. Yeah. Cool beans, right? I love this. My inner Andrea, her inner being is dancing. Yay. Cool. All right.
Susan, I have one question.
Yes.
How would you interpret that? Very often at daytime, my the coherence and the balance are at 100, but always then the allowance is very low, 4% or something. Does it mean I feel comfortable in resistance, or how?
Okay. No,
So
not
I didn't remember what I did at that time.
Yeah, I know. This is it's a self-discovery process, right? And when you're sleeping, for almost everybody, you're obviously not very active in your body, and you're resting, and you're not thinking. So that causes all your metrics to generally rise. But, you know, even for me, like, I must be sleepwalking, because my balance is, you know, swinging around. So it's normal to have allowance to come down when you first wake up. Very, very, very common. And it's because you're coming back into your body, and you're starting to think, and your heart is beating faster so that you can get up and start moving. So it's a change. And the allowance is going to show that. It's going to show that your heart is beating. You can even look at your heartbeat, your heart rate. It's going up for sure. So then the question is, I guess the goal, the Holy Grail, is, how do I engage in my life in a relatively physical way and yet hold my allowance high? How do I engage in life with less effort, physical effort, like less willpower, more trust, more surrender, more ease and grace, and less resistance, even in, especially in your mind, with how you're looking at the world. Be less reactive to it and more accepting of it, and just looking for thoughts that have less resistance in them, more allowance. It's like a step-by-step everlasting journey of noticing your thoughts, noticing how you feel, and seeing if you can just maybe one step by step release a little resistance, increase your allowance, and just experiment, right? Experiment with, well, like, it'll happen by accident. You'll be like, well, what was I doing then? Look at that. That thing just shot up like a rocket. And that's what I'm going to show you guys in a minute here, that that's what happened to me. Things just shot up. I was like, whoa, what did I do? Like, how'd that happen? You know, it might actually come by accident, because believe it or not, it's usually when you let go and stop trying so hard that things just start working. When you finally give up, sometimes that's when things just fall into place. So yeah, Chris is nodding. He's pretty experienced in this. All right.
May I add something?
Of course, Roman.
Yeah. At the beginning, when you start to read your soul compass, it might be even overwhelming to see the graphs, and at the beginning you try to match your experience with the graph, and might be random sometimes. It's good to have an activity which is really reoccurring. Maybe like Chris is doing certain things every day at the same time in the same way. And with these activities, you can really easily understand, okay, when I do that, the graph is doing that. When I do this, the graph is doing this. Then you can more easily understand what is actually happening with the metrics. Because for me, I have 3 children. I have a totally chaotic day most of the time. Really not much rhythm except my meditation in the morning and bringing the kids to bed in the evening. This is a very strong ritual too. And what you will discover then is a certain pattern in these rituals. And with that, you can work and understand better what is happening. And then I discovered, okay, now this app I have now in front of me, the Soul Compass, is not enough, because actually there are happening more details within the simplified graph we see now. Then you will discover much more if you're already comfortable with the Soul Compass now, and you understand your rituals and what you're doing and what is the Soul Compass showing you. Then you can dive deeper with the dashboard we get in some weeks, and you can really optimize whatever you're doing there.
That's a great advice, Roman, is think of the current Soul Compass as just a real simple interface to look for some larger patterns. Like, see if you can just in general notice some patterns. Like, you do breath work, Diana, that'd be a great place to start. And, you know, see if you can breathe differently to get different results. And you know that, so yeah, it's more of a general tool right now. And as I'm going to share, I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek of the more detailed view. That could be quite overwhelming for someone to start there, so we won't, because we want people to first discover some more general patterns with our current formulas that are averaging things out. And sure, you might miss those like really special moments, but it's more important in the beginning to notice the bigger, larger patterns about you. Make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
and speaking about that, not only a very ritualistic thing, but also to test the metrics and learn the metrics with activities that take a certain duration. If you do every 5 minutes something else, you won't ever be able to read the metrics. If you have something like, I will drive now by car for 3 hours, this is an activity you will definitely see in the metrics. And you will, if you repeat that like every week, you will definitely see how this will evolve. Chris is doing meditation, physical exercise, and meditation. I think this is 3 or 4 hours in one batch every day. You can learn so much of this time span every day. So the frequency of repetition and the duration of a session is really important to understand, because the soul compass right now is smoothing out lines, as Susan was talking about. And so it means that if you do a 10-minute meditation and you look at the flow compass, you might not see the effect of that. You need to meditate, I think, from experience, at least 1 hour to see the experience in the flow in the soul compass. With a new dashboard, you could maybe meditate for 15 minutes and you will see the result, because we will see spikes too there. But right now, be patient, take long durations, and practice, practice, practice.
All right.
One of the things that I've covered, Susie, Roman, is that even mundane or what might be considered profane activities, when done in communion with Source, can in fact elevate your flow. So as Roman has pointed out, I do meditate several hours a day, and I'm able to max out on the metrics during the meditations. But to my surprise, I can also max out on the meditations when I'm having a martini, or when I was in my hairstylist last week. It's amazing that once you recognize that you can be in flow at any moment, at any time, in any activity, that gives me, at least, this vision or this aspiration to move in that direction at all times, not to identify any particular activity as inappropriate or scandalous or profane. Just embrace life fully in all of its pleasures and recognize that you can flow with God's grace in everything.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Practicing the presence, like Brother Lawrence wrote.
So the goal is to, have a martini with no guilt, or just do whatever with no resistance.
Well, that's really the point.
Yeah.
We load up so many things in our lives with resistance because of shame and guilt and worry and fear and doubts. And when you start stripping those away, you find life can be flowing and beautiful in every moment. Since we would find it as a bad, or find it as, as something inappropriate, but in fact, everything is a grace if you accept that.
Yeah. Well, for those of you who have been following Chris or want to, he is specimen number 1, because he's figured out how to get to those states. And then there's this afterglow where it almost doesn't matter what he does. He can go walk the dogs and pick up dog poop, and that's like a blissed out experience. Yeah. So that's we've had a few other pilots mention that as well, like Taina and Amkar and Roman. They get an afterglow. They just carries over, and that's really when you're in the flow, where you have positive momentum with the wind behind your back, right? And Jim had a comment too, that around, yes, when you are moving out of your mind, that's why often deep meditation with no thoughts is actually stronger than even your sleep state. Like if you could really get out of your mind and go quiet, be mindless as opposed to mindful, your heart coherency typically does increase. And it was actually Chris who helped us figure this out. He showed us metrics of 100% across the board. I'm like, oh my God, how are you doing that? Are you still breathing? And he just wasn't thinking. He was completely in a state of connection with the divine. And that helped us tremendously in discovering some of the formulas that we have today. Okay. You guys ready to see?
Can I just say a quick thing?
Of course.
Sorry, real quick. Rena here from Vancouver. I'm glad you mentioned before about the level of going right down when you wake up. That happens to me all the time.
Yes.
And I'm really looking at what brings up. And one thing that's pretty consistent that brings my levels up is when I'm learning something new, like especially something spiritual in the spiritual realm.
Right.
It's amazing. Like that even brings me up higher than meditation these days. But anyway, just wonder if anyone else notices that. Like even probably the fall will bring.
Absolutely. When I'm working on something that I just lose myself in, and I'm really losing track of time, and I'm quite inspired and happy and passionate or just peaceful, absolutely, that's when I rise too. And the only thing greater than no thoughts, the one thing that's actually better than having no thoughts at all is thoughts of love and appreciation. So if you're loving and inspired and curious about something, then absolutely you can show yourself that will raise your allowance. Did I see a hand raise? Somebody else? Okay. All right. Roman, of course, I see your hand. Go for it.
Just because I see in some screens children walking by. It's quite natural as a parent to have low allowance during the day, especially when the kids are around you. And the metrics we have, HRV, for example, or the metrics we see in the balance, are interpretations of our nervous systems. And one is really like expressing the nervous system, which is really active in flight or flight. Flight or fright.
Fight or flight.
Yeah. And when you're a parent with little children, you're always in alert mode. You always look for, okay, where are they going? What are they doing? And this is naturally bringing your allowance down. In these moments, you can try to relax and maybe just observe and just play with this around, and maybe you see some changes in your allowance too. And look only at allowance in these cases. Don't trust so much in balance and coherence. Look only at allowance in these cases.
Yes.
This might be interesting too.
Yes.
Because when my kids go to sleep, my allowance jumps up every evening to the hundreds. As soon as they are in bed, Papa is free. Yeah.
Amazing. Couple comments in the chat group. Thanks, you guys. Yes, the more you flow, the more you glow. And one of these days we'll be measuring biophotons that will elicit a lot of information about what you're radiating. I mean, every emotion even has a frequency. So this is all coming up. Speaking of something Jim said and Dr. Bernie, let's talk about like presence. When you're really, really present, when you're really quiet in your mind and you're really in a state of feeling more present, more now, not thinking about the past or the future. You're just like taking in the moment of whatever you're feeling, and it might be something outside of you. It just might be a memory. Maybe you came out of meditation. If you can get into a state of presence, which is full of love and acceptance and maybe beauty, you can generally show yourself that will pull your allowance up. Your heart coherency will elevate, and you're actually being more full. You're actually flowing, and you're filling up more of, you're allowing more of your true energy, your divine energy, to flow through you. And that's actually what we believe a flow state is. You've kind of flipped the switch, so to speak, and instead of you being in your head or your willpower, being the limited doer, you're being a full beer. You're just flowing this liquid love through you, and it's quite literally free energy from source. And that's how we believe, whether you're an athlete somehow sprinting or a marathon, like where's that energy coming from, or a musician on stage performing and actually being replenished instead of drained while you're performing, or in a case of an emergency, you're able to do what defies your physical body's ability. These things are flow, and the energy is coming from somewhere. And that's kind of what we're looking for through the biometrics, is when is the ripple effect evident in your body? That's what we're all looking for. And we've decided to open it up so that you guys can get in on this discovery with us, and together increase the value of the soul compass and its accuracy in guiding you towards your true self. Yes, so source fullness, you're filling up, you're full and you're flowing. It's not, a lot of people will talk about being selfless, or being focusing on, not, you're part of it. You cannot forget yourself, right? You want to go for a win-win experience, and not try to be the source for somebody else, but fill yourself up, and then you overflow and you have love and clarity and wisdom to share with others. So it's not about emptying yourself up. It's about this actualization of your divine self, and with it, paradoxically, is a win-win. Everybody wins when you fill up. Okay, so let me share my screen here and show you something that happened the other day. And as I share it, I'm going to try to relive it so that you get the full experience of what I'm going to share. So the other day, I had Akasha and Kira were visiting, and we did a sound bath, and it didn't go so well in the morning. I was trying to record it with my cell phone, and oh man, that just didn't work. And we kind of laughed about it afterwards, and we were just sitting around and letting it go. Like, whatever, we'll do it again, no big deal. And then we just got talking about the beginning of Token of Me and how it all started. And I was just reliving some stories with them of how I got the idea, and then the metaverse and how that would play out. And then Kasha started talking about how he played the sound bath for a woman as she was leaving her body. And I was like, oh my God, And then he talked about like what he experienced. And then I started talking about what I experienced when my mom left her body. And it was so uplifting. And we were just like, we were flying with the loved ones that were out of their body now. And tears of joy were happening. And, I didn't really think much of it other than it felt really good. But later on, I decided just to look at my metrics to see how the day went. And I saw something really, this is the first thing I saw. I went and looked at Garmin, and this is my heart rate. And, this is me going for a little morning walk. And my resting heart rate, though, is usually in the 70s or 60s, like low 70s, high 60s. And I was like, what is this? My resting heart rate 49? That's like half my rate. How'd that happen? When did that happen? Right? Like, that's just so weird. I've never ever seen my resting heart rate go that low. So that was my first little nugget of what's up with that, So then I looked at this nifty new tool. Here we go. Perfect. This is our new tool. Okay. First time you're getting to see it. Still some work to be done, but what happened was, like, this is pretty obvious that something happened at that time. Well, first of all, this graph here is heart rate, and therefore it's the same thing as what we were just looking at. See how it looks the same? This is Garmin showing just my heart rate. And here's our new nifty tool showing it as well. And again, sure enough, right around 12-ish, it just dropped in half. And I mean, you can't just do that, right? Go ahead and try to make your heart beat at half its rate. And it wasn't just an anomaly, right? It went on for a little while. So we ruled out that it was some kind of mistake. Your allowance is made up of these ingredients. And I'm not going to go into them today, what they stand for, but just know that this graph here is the increment. These are the formulas to look at your heart rate information and the variation of it. And when is the variation high? Okay. So there's different formulas for calculating the variation. And I'm pointing this out because Robin expressed something earlier today where she was expecting her allowance to go up and it didn't. Well, my allowance only went up to about 50% during a very, very strong peak experience. And so that's one reason why we don't want you to miss perhaps these hidden gems. And I would have missed it if I wasn't able to look at my underlying data. Now, we don't want to make like data scientists out of all of you, but we're going to find a way to let you get in on yourself and become more aware of what is happening to you with your metrics. So this obviously stood out, and no surprise, my heart rate variability skyrocketed at that exact moment that my heart rate went down, right? Heart rate goes down, heart rate variability goes up, and so this is the power spectrum. So this is the frequency domain of your heart rate power. We're taking your heart rate information, this information, and we're determining the various frequency components of your heartbeat, right? So two different things. One is the variation of the beats, and then where is your power in the beats? And so without going into the specifics, you don't have to know the specifics to know that there's something interesting that took place at this time. And that's what we're going to bring you guys in on, is how to look for this yourself without even knowing what some of these formulas are. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to just show you, that we're looking into new ways of letting you look at you. And so I'm going to now show you Chris, with your permission, Chris. So you see, mine just sort of, mine stood out, right? But Chris's, he's so consistent that, like, look at him. His power is just always up, right? It's going to be a little harder to find someone who's just so consistently high. But you can find it, right? We're studying his data with his permission. You can see, like, he just has such a solid way of living that he's in high coherence most of the time. And whoever you are, you can find that when your heart rate goes down, he was probably at the gym, when it comes down, his power goes up, right? His power is going to go up. And this is how athletes train. I mean, their heart rate's going to go up, but their resting heart rate will go down. You see how he's going down? For his age, his heart rate, his resting heart rate is lower than mine. And, he's more than 10 years older than me. So that's a very common thing with athletes, that their resting heart rate goes down and their heart coherency and power goes up. And this is just looking at heart information, right? This is this is just the beginning, folks. I purposely didn't show you the graph where you look at it all together, because that could be overwhelming. But we're going to create an interface where you can click the check boxes and go, okay, like, let's just start with this and that. And then if you want more, you can add more. If you want less, you can take some away and begin to look at it on top of it. And so that's why we're thinking of making it into a treasure hunt. So it's fun. And you're just looking for what makes your heart sing these higher sweet notes and higher power, and when you're not draining yourself as well, how do you balance the two out? All right, any comments, questions? Jim, I like what you said. Yes, I see teams self-organizing. You guys will be encouraged to create your own teams, especially if you've got something that you've shown yourself really works for you and others resonate with it. Well, then, and you can be on multiple teams, right? It's not like just one way or one team.
Can I make a remark?
Of course you can.
I've been playing with coherence and flow and presence, and I've got about a dozen articles talking about coherence. And I think what you're doing is just outstanding. And I think the idea of inviting people to work together, I say on their own, under the auspices of the overall program here, is outstanding. And I got 50 years background in meditation, 400 neurofeedback sessions. I've been dinking around for a while and love to put a small group together. And the fun part is we can do all of this at a distance, because some of my work requires, neurofeedback. You have to be in place. So I'd like to see people play, and I'd like to participate and contribute to a particular team with some particular direction.
Great, Jim. Love it. Yeah, I think many of you are going to be pioneers, and the best approach is our techniques and methods that don't require someone being physically in the same place or doing it to you. As much self-empowerment as possible, where you're not relying on another person or another thing to improve yourself, because we're trying to create more independence and unconditional empowerment instead of the conditional one. So it's a little bit of a paradox, right? There'll be some of us who are gonna just like run ahead and self-organize around certain coaches and teachers, and those of us who have been kicking the tires longer and have tried and true methods, and you want to share them with others, great. We'll have a platform for you to do that. And then each person can choose and switch, and right, you can try it all. And then whatever works for you will become more prominent. So that's why the Soul Compass is so powerful, is we don't have to get each other's approval. It's more about self-approval.
When you move out of the mind, things get interesting. That's where that's where it's all at. That's where it's all at.
Yep.
That's where the frontier is. All the pioneering, all the adventuring, all the journeying sands the mind, and then we document what we discover.
Yes, indeed. I learned that very powerfully with Dr. Bernie and the caregivers caring for my mom. The ones who just came with love had way more intuition than the doctors from the hospital or the nurses. The ones that weren't using their head but more heart actually were the most valuable ones.
I'm wondering, for the discoveries, how, if it'll be integrated in the dashboard to be like, hey, I discovered this, and then give feedback to you, or like the algorithms to change the formulas, or if it's more just about self-discovery at that point as well, or if it's a bit of both.
It's going to be a bit of both and everything in between, and even beyond that we haven't figured out yet. It starts with personal self-discovery, and as you discover things, you might share that with others first, or come to, if you feel like, oh my God, this really like what happened for me, it stood out so loud and clear, I ran it to the core team. We're going to have weekly meetings like this. You could bring them up then as a bigger group, or have subgroups. It starts with first your own discovery, and then if it is a universal truth, then others should be able to experiment with themselves and see if they can get similar results. but there are no rules because you don't need to get everybody else to agree. If it really, really works for you, that's good enough. And it's up to us to figure out, well, why is that not working for other people, and not hold you back for it. You don't have to get peer group approval, but will eventually spend time with someone who has a pretty, if you have a pretty extreme experience, we want to hear about it, because we're trying to learn too. And you guys are the pioneers. You're the specimens, and with your participation.
I'm also wondering, will there be a way, because the data sort of moves along as time goes on, will there be a way to like zoom in or zoom out, or be like, I want to capture this snippet in time, show me the graph for like the hour on this day for and like have that, and then send it to you, or share it to others and be like, this is what I was doing, or maybe not for just like a single point, but eventually like, hey, I did this 5 weeks in a row and this is what happened, and then blah blah. Like maybe it'll help you.
We have a Telegram group where people are already taking snapshots and then sharing it with the group and letting us know what they were doing. There's already a pathway to do that. There will be some improvements where, like with Garmin, you can turn it on its side and you can zoom in and out and be more, we don't have that yet, but you can touch the screen and get a time stamp, and then take a picture, take a screenshot, and then share it with the group.
I mean, I also mean for the new data visualization thing, like to have it for the new discoveries of the golden nuggets with the more access to more data.
Yeah, I think even in those graphs, we could specifically zoom in on certain points and easily export the graphs as PNGs, like the ticket pages, and what comes to the graphs is the timestamps. So if you have a consistent recording of something, then we would have, just capture the graph as a PNG and we would know what time it is. And based on that, we could construct some hypotheses and apply to the data and see if it is fitting with the rest of the group, and collect feedback and keep reiterating on such feedback loops.
Yeah, we're being very more casual about it. We're not undergoing like a scientific study. We don't have a control group. If you go to Dr. Joe Dispenza events, only a minority of people even get measured, and you don't even see your data. So we're purposefully trying a new thing, which is more about self-empowerment and self-organization. And we just think that that's going to lead to the truths faster than being linear about it and scientific about it and putting everybody in the same box together and conducting a controlled study. This is an uncontrolled study. We don't know we're just going to let it unfold. And then we're just going to constantly make improvements as we go. Right? You guys are in on it with us. If we start seeing something like with Roman, he was like, hey, I kind of want to see maybe without the formulas. Can I see it like that? And then Mohan created a dashboard, and then we're like, oh my God, look, we've seen things. Let's do that, and why not open it up to everybody and let them decide if they want it or not. Robin, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't want to change the subject per se, but I had one more question, just because this week there was a lot in the feed about some system reboots and different things. So I wanted to confirm, because I'm still learning how to read the metrics, on the main page where it gives you the summary. And maybe this is a Mohan question. If it has a red line, does that mean that it just didn't collect data during that particular time?
We're not using that screen.
Oh, we're not using that screen at all.
Yeah, I tried to say in the beginning, we're not supporting that yet.
Okay.
It's way too complicated. It's not finished.
Okay, great. Then I don't need to look at that at all. Perfect. That's helpful. But I did notice, sometimes that would just be where the timestamp would just sort of stop. So that's just one of those moments where it was rebooting or what have you.
No, I don't even know if it's doing that. Like I said, stick with the screen that's for Soul Compass. That's the main screen.
This one with and only the green line is what we're looking at.
That's the screen. Yeah, exactly. And then to synchronize Garmin to get the data updated and analyzed. And on did fix. There were some issues with delays, and that has been resolved. So it's really as long as you keep synchronizing, you should be able to get updates.
Okay, perfect. Just do this. Okay, great. I just wanted to, I got a little lost in that.
Yeah, I
so I just want to
I know it's very
That's perfect. So just the green line focus and stick with that and just update. And then do you know if, I'm assuming Garmin has like some YouTubes and things about what you were sharing earlier about the body battery and stress, just to help cross study myself.
Yeah, I would just play with Garmin, go into Garmin Connect and, explore on your own different features on My Day. You can scroll down to the bottom and add different features, whether it's your heartbeat, your stress level, your sleep, if you wear it while sleeping, and how many steps you took for the day. Like you could, we aren't really, I think, go to YouTube or go to Garmin itself to be more self-exploratory about it.
Okay. Yeah, so you actually like that data. You like looking at that too, Susan, as far as stress and body battery in particular and heart rate?
Well, I mostly look at heart rate information.
Okay.
I occasionally, I like to look at my sleep, my dreams, like, oh yeah, that was a cool dream. We don't really measure, we're not really going to comment much about sleep time because it's hard enough to do it while you're conscious and awake. You're not really in control of your thoughts when you're sleeping. So yeah, sometimes I swing back and forth. I've been currently trying to improve my body battery. Like I'm wondering why it doesn't think I'm recovering while I'm sleeping. And so I'm experimenting with things in my life to see if I can shift that. So
okay, great. Thank you.
You bet. Did somebody else have a question? I thought Birgit had a question. She had her hand raised.
Yeah, it's not a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. It's like more like sharing. I'm with my daughter actually since I'm out of time since the end of July. And exactly the day we started, it was the day of I wanted to be at the spot, arrive there, to be there on time and take part. And I arrived exactly.
Yeah, I think that was when we did our launch. You were there. You made it just in time for the launch.
And then I think 2 days later, I got this email and I was like, oh, wow, it's happening. So I don't even remember the day I first time heard of it. It was like being in a call with someone else and you were joining and it was just like 2 or 3 sentences. And then another day I looked up on the internet and I was like, my heart was resonating the first time. I didn't get it with my mind, but I was like having this resonance and I applied and in between I almost forgot and that's
and here you are.
Yeah, I love it. And now I'm here, yes. And like I'm looking at my data and they are like, I was happy to see the screen of Chris you showed, like, and it's some parts are like similar, the one you showed from Chris, and I was like, oh wow, that's cool. So
Yeah.
I'm just enjoying life right now, so traveling with my daughter, and live in the moment.
That's great. You're living in the moment. With your family and with nature on the road, feeling very free, carefree.
Yeah.
It's great that your metrics are agreeing with that.
Yes. So and it's like I'm on my way, and I'm on the right way. So it's
Thank you,
exciting to see
Birgit.
that on the soul compass.
Thank you, Birgit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Birgit was one of those first pilots that reached out to me with tears of joy because she could really feel the resonance of it and the love of it. And more of that is happening. More and more people are coming in and feeling the resonance of it. And you're going to see more and more of that. That's how we're just organically growing, is through just expressing what the essence of it is and what it can do for you. And it's very attractive for those who are ready for self-empowerment and wanting the truth and no longer wanting to go take somebody else's word for it. Amkar, you want to tell us about those beautiful trees I keep seeing above your head? It's so beautiful. What a great way to connect.
Hey, Susan. Yeah, it is great, right? I was just spending the night with a friend, just a lot of resonance in the conversation. And the morning, I decided I don't want to go back home. It would be nice to just stay out and just something that allows me to ground, being in nature and experience flow. So I decided to do this, and so happy to be here. There's one reflection I have. There's just the happiness and joy that I'm feeling for this invitation to come in and look at your own raw data. I've shared this to you personally, I believe, but I believe it's profound to invite customers into the product development process. That's game changing in my eyes. And I love the open sourcing and just the initiative and direction we're headed in. And really excited to see how it starts bubbling up once everyone can have.
Thank you, Amkar. Well, you were part of that decision, and I thank you for accepting the invitation to help us open this up. And it is new. So yes, it is. It's almost like another paradox that we discovered, that there's actual power in letting go of the formulas that we thought were the best. Like, wait a minute, they're not necessarily the best. And so there's this paradox in being really confident and really sure and really trusting yourself, and yet being open-hearted to being better. And there's something extremely strong and vulnerable at the same time with saying, you know what, maybe we're all better off if you get in on it with us and actually co-discover it with us, instead of like stepping out of the driver's seat and trying to be the authority and have all the answers. There's something very powerful and inspiring and strong in letting go and saying, you know what, I actually have a lot of faith in our pilots, that if we unleash them and give them more access, that they actually will tell us what are the higher truths. And that's what's happening. Yeah, that's real love right there. It's not trying to be right. It's choosing to be free and happy. And we always planned on sharing the value with everyone. So let's just start by acting in accordance with this philosophy. So that's what's happening. And you see how it can be really tricky for a company just to be that vulnerable. And but it really has sparked something, and I'm really excited about what's happening. We've had more people respond to the call to grant stock ownership. That's how Curtis Sasaki found us. And many new pilots are just pouring in because this really resonates with human empowerment. And it says, hey, don't take our word for it. Why don't you come in here? Why don't you become a pilot? Why don't you fly yourself? And here's the tool. And why don't you get in on the action? And why don't you tell us what makes you a better you? And then we all benefit. So that's what I think is pulling in more people. Any more thoughts, you guys? We're near the end of today's call. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time, Diana will be leading us in a breath work session. I'll send out an invite to create that, and you can test it out. And then whatever you've got, test it out on yourselves. If you find something that really is consistent in your practice that elevates your metrics, take a snapshot and share it with the group on the Telegram group for Soul Compass. And then we'll invite you to share what you discovered with the group. We're looking for these universal formulas, right? That like we're all love. So how do we get more of that? How do we allow more of that to just flow? Thank you for coming today and flowing with us today. Cool. All right. See you all. Much love.